Hi, everybody. It's me again, and something different this time. I'm going to talk to you about Israel and internal Israel issues. Now, I know I've been talking a lot about Syria, and I will again within a day or two. But just to switch up, but I'm going to do it differently from what I've been doing on when I've been talking about Israel and Palestinian issues before. I've been speaking to a friend of mine. He's a guy called Hillel who is co-editor of the Palestine-Israel Journal. And he has given me his permission to quote what he said. So much of what I'm going to tell you is what Hillel told me. And yeah, the most of it, really. And I'm going to try and explain what's going on inside Israel. And what I want to start with is just a little point from the Israel Voice Index. Now, I always loved the Israel Voice Index. It's something it's kind of a polling thing that's done by the Israel Democracy Institute. And that tells me that 57% of Israelis support an end to the war with Gaza rather than a temporary start-stop ceasefire. You'd think it was more, wouldn't you? But that breaks down as 92% of those supporting political parties on the left, all right? The traditional left-wing parties. Whereas only 36% of those supporting political parties on the right, that's Likud and those to the right of Likud, only 36% of those support an end to the war with Gaza. That's Netanyahu's constituency. Slightly disturbing point to start off. But let me tell you now what my friend Hillel was telling me, because it's important in this context. He was pointing out that Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, laid out to both the Israelis and the Palestinians in his meetings with them a series of points, 4 points, which were to be the basis for the discussions that were supposed to go forward, or are supposed to go forward as part of the process. And the 4 points are, and let's remember them, because this is Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, laying this down as the law. The 4 points are respect for sovereignty. Respect for sovereignty is number 1. 2, economic prosperity. Business people, you see. 3, courageous diplomacy. And 4, reciprocity and responsibility. Interesting 4 points. 1, respect for sovereignty. 2, economic prosperity. 3, courageous diplomacy. 4, reciprocity and responsibility. I can scarcely say that word, reciprocity, but you get it, don't you? I mean, he's been hammering that on the table in his conversations with the Israelis and the Palestinians. Okay. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch in Israel, there are the first cracks in Netanyahu's coalition, as you are well aware. Well, you might be. Itamar Ben-Gvir and 5 members of the government resigned over this peace deal. So Itamar Ben-Gvir, the extreme right-wing nationalist, is no longer Minister of National Security. And perhaps he never will be again. Meanwhile, disturbingly, Mr. Smotrich, Bezalel Smotrich, that's a hell of a first name, isn't it? Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, very key member of Netanyahu's alliance, says he will resign from the government if war fails to resume, I will resign if you don't resume the war after this ceasefire. Now, the other side of the coin. Two very right-wing parties, the ultra-Orthodox Shas party and the party United Torah Judaism. Shas is a party that, in its ideology, places high value on life, on Jewish life particularly, obviously, but on life. Both of these extreme right-wing parties, they are extreme right-wing. Don't be mistaken. They say we want to continue with the ceasefire. Okay. Now, a little other footnotes, because it's important. Israeli politics is hugely complex for us that are not Israelis. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, has, just a reminder, sacked Yoav Gallant as defense minister. Okay, now Yoav Gallant is a moderate. I mean, the extraordinary abuse of the war crimes. Gods, we've indicted Yoav Gallant as... Come on. He's one of the more moderate people. Anyway, he's been replaced by Israel Katz from Likud. It may sound all tedious to you, but Israel Katz is hard right. What's Israel Katz doing? He's releasing settlers who've been imprisoned for beating up Palestinians. And he's trying to fire the head of Mossad, who he regards as too liberal. Mossad's Israel's foreign intelligence service. Katz is trying to outdo Netanyahu in terms of being on the right. Okay, all of this. Now, backstage at the same time, there is speculation about Mr. Netanyahu's health. It's a bit dodgy. He's been unwell before, and he's not in great physical shape. I know he's visiting Washington, but he's not in great shape. And to all of this time of trouble, his wife, Sarah, I've met her, I know this woman. I met her once in an Israeli newspaper office. Hell of a girl. She came in, jeans on, sat on the editor's desk, and told him, basically, flirted with him, told him, she had to support her husband. She was... bundle of energy. Anyway, she's part of the Netanyahu team. She's key to Netanyahu. Don't underestimate the power and the influence of Netanyahu's wife. She is really the power behind the throne, very, very much. Now, his wife, Sarah, where's his wife, Sarah, at this time of crisis? She's in Miami. She has been in Miami for some time. She's not at his side. Really undermining Netanyahu. Difficult for him. And what is Netanyahu's big daydream? It's a deal with Saudi Arabia. This is his plum he wants to pluck. A deal with Saudi Arabia. Saudi recognition of the State of Israel. This would be history-making. This would be, he could rest on his laurels. He could go to the electorate and win another term. Anyway. Oh, by the way, reminder, just a spoiler alert or something, I don't know what you call it. Israeli elections are slated for October 2026. That's the backstop. That's when they have to take place. So if Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition limps on in one shape or another, then he's going nowhere. for more than another year, well over another year, almost 2 years. So his big dream is a deal with Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, has had, people talk about Saudi having to cover its back with its base. Saudi doesn't. Saudi's run by Mohammed bin Salman, one of the toughest dictators in the universe. There's no messing with MBS. You complain about dictators in this world. You're talking hard. He's very liberal in some respects. He's given women the right to drive a car. Imprisoned the campaigners that campaigned for the right to drive a car. But nonetheless, he has. But you cross him, you're goodbye, Charlie Brown, you're in jail, throw away the keys. Mohammed bin Salman is actually technically not the king of Saudi Arabia. As you know, he is the crown prince, but he's the one who wears the trousers, or dish dasher in this case. Right, so Saudi Arabia has formed, since October 7th, under Mohammed Salman driving this forward, has formed a global alliance for a two-state solution. It has 90 signatories. 90 countries, nations have signed up to it at Saudi Arabia's behest. Well, this is important because, Netanyahu said there will never be a Palestinian state, and he's got the Knesset to vote for that. What does he want? He wants a single state? Yeah, I find it hard to cope with that, too. Now, this is at a time, meanwhile, don't think it's just Gaza that's under pressure. West Bankers are not even allowed to come to Jerusalem at the moment. Ordinary, respectable West Bankers who want to just travel. It is really difficult times. Now, the polls say, of course, the current coalition would not win an election, the current right-wing coalition with Netanyahu, would no matter the fact that Netanyahu is more popular than he was. He was extremely unpopular after October 7th. He's slightly more popular now, but polls say current coalition would not win an election. But remember that the two ultra-Orthodox parties, Shas and United Torah Judaism, might step in to prop him up. Now, we talked, I hope you're not getting too confused. We talked about Smotrich, who's threatened to resign if the peace deal continues. This is the key finance minister. I get so confused by these things. I have to look at my notes. If he goes, that's a bit much, you would think. But you'd think that meant a new election for Benjamin Netanyahu. But Benny Gantz, the leader of the left, we used to call them the Blues, the left in Israel, and Yair Lapid, another key political leader, who you would think of as the opposition, say they would back a new coalition meant keeping the peace deal. So very, very confusing Israeli politics. All these little factors to take into consideration. And meanwhile, back in the U.S. State Department, Trump's man, the key person in the State Department, is Joel Rayburn, the Assistant Secretary of State. And he's a moderating voice, and you have these moderating voices around. So, you mustn't get them too mistaken here. These guys are not softies. Witkoff, we talked about Witkoff, Trump's envoy, basically says to Netanyahu, do as you're told, and you can have a free hand in the West Bank. settlers and that kind of thing. These are not moderate men, but they have their thinking. Benjamin Netanyahu could and did say no to President Biden. He cannot say no to Trump. I mean, when we had the resumption of the ceasefire in Lebanon just the other day, the statement issued to resume the ceasefire in Lebanon did not come from Israel. It came from Washington. So, I mean, Trump is very hardline. He's removed the sanctions from the West Bank settlers who were sanctioned for being brutal towards Palestinians. But are we going to have a one-state solution? Impossible, really, isn't it? Impossible, because it would mean that the whole Jewish makeup of the state of Israel was threatened. Meanwhile, Trump is... Well, first of all, Netanyahu has outlawed UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, that provides all the aid, handles all the aid going into Gaza. Well, not all of it, but a substantial proportion of it. And everybody panics about that. But its West Bank offices obviously will be closed. But there's an unstated compromise in regard to what goes on in Gaza. So I think UNRWA will limp on, continue under another face-saving compromise, possibly even another name in Gaza. Some people like a one-state solution, and they talk about a federation. I don't know. Federation? What's that going to be? Federation of... so you don't have a proper state of Palestine, you have a federated state of Israel, Palestine, and Jordan? I mean, doesn't seem... Seems like a bird with one wing. I'm not sure I can fly. Anyway, I don't believe in a one-state solution, personally. Donald Trump has come out with some atrocious things. He said that the Gazans should be totally ethnically cleansed. They should be thrown out into Egypt and Jordan, displaced entirely, clean that place out. It's, of course, a nonsense, because to do that would be, the end of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, because it would cause such political unrest. It would be the end of Sisi of Egypt, the dictator of Egypt. He would be finished, because it would cause such political unrest within Egypt. There might be an excuse for Donald Trump to save lots of American dosh by taking it away from Egypt and Jordan. Presumably the Saudis will step in to prop up Egypt, which is one of their client states. Displacing though there is a major displacement by stealth. Thousands upon thousands of Palestinians have gone out and are going out from Gaza for medical treatment. Well, you understand, how many thousands are injured, for medical treatment and for other reasons, including bribery in some instances. You can buy your way out of Gaza if you've got the money. Thousands of people have left on compassionate grounds. None of them. Nobody's allowed back. Difficult, eh? Sad. Egypt is complicit in that. Oh, you say you have to let people out for medical reasons. Yeah, well, maybe, but if you let them back again, that's the point, isn't it? Oh, dear Lord, what a business. Anyway, I think, for what it's worth, that we have seen the end of the war in Gaza. I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu will go back to war on Donald Trump's watch. I believe not. I think we have an obligation to be hopeful. So I'm hoping. Today, as I record, this is Candlemas in the Western Christian Church. A special kind of day. For many, the end of the Christmas season, because the last season was Epiphany, the season of the three wise men. Let's hope for peace on earth this Candlemas. And God bless you, one and all. Thank you.